Good morning. It is Saturday, May 27th, 2017. Today is the day that many of us people that have been tracking the weather have been waiting for all week because we have been forecasting this event to be coming through the area called an MCS, a mesoscale convective system. Early in the week, I began to watch this around Sunday and Monday. Usually when it's that far out and you're seeing it, it never really happens. And it was on some of those long-range models such as the GFS and the European, and I didn't really have a lot of confidence in it. But as time grew closer to today, that the short range models began to pick up on it too. So confidence began to increase, and now almost all the models, every one of them, are now showing a solid line of showers and thunderstorms. Even the ensembles are showing a strong and gusty line of showers and thunderstorms moving through our neck of the woods late tonight. This would be sometime between 8 p.m. and 2 a.m. as my time of concern. These are more than likely going to be severe. The Storm Prediction Center, I will show you their outlook at the very end of the video. They have us in a moderate risk, which is a step higher than what I had yesterday, which was an enhanced risk, and that was what they had yesterday. I showed you that in the video. That was early on in the day, around 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon. They did upgrade us to a moderate risk, and that is a step higher. That is a 4 out of 5 risk. So only one step higher would be the highest that they could go. So we only get under a moderate risk around 2 to 3 times a year, and sometimes not even that. I will give you an example. The last time we were in a moderate risk was the February 28th, and then overnight into the early morning hours of March the 1st outbreak. That was the same outbreak that we had the EF4 Perryville tornado. We had the Cuba tornado. Many of you in the purchase area will remember that one, an EF2 tornado. And that one was a QLCS tornadoes. Those are very short-lived, and they usually are produced from a line of thunderstorms, which is what we have coming in tonight. So we have strong and gusty winds to look forward to. We also have isolated tornadoes, very quick QLCS tornadoes, but you've seen the damage that they can do because the Cuba tornado was very damaging, and that one was just a small QLCS tornado, and it did a lot of damage to life and property. And then as we look at the hail potential, it's greater off to our west just a little bit, but we still have that hail potential because we will have some very heavy thunderstorms moving through that could have some small hail cores in them. So we'll be looking for that as well. Sometimes we don't see a lot of hail with the line of thunderstorms. We'll usually just see torrential downpours, the gusty winds, lightning, heavy rain, but usually we'll see the hail with these discrete supercells, isolated storms that usually form off by themselves, and that is a question mark. Do we see supercells form ahead of this line? If we do, our tornado threat does increase, so does our hail threat. If we see the line of thunderstorms move through without any supercells ahead of them, then we could just be looking at a straight damaging wind line threat. There is potential that we do see a derecho this evening and late tonight. A derecho is a defined term for a line of thunderstorms. It has a definition. Not sure what that definition is, but I do know that it does have certain requirements to meet a derecho, and they are very significant wind makers, very significant severe events, and they usually occur with MCSs, which is what we have moving through this evening, a mesoscale convective system. And those complexes of thunderstorms, they usually come through at this time of the year, early on in the summer, when you have some of that northwest flow still kicking in, and that is what we're looking at. We're looking at that northwest flow bringing that thunderstorm down. That is northwest flow, not at the surface, but northwest flow several thousand feet at the 500 millibar level, the jet stream level, and that is what is driving those systems down here into our neck of the woods. Now, right now, we do have temperatures that are in the upper 60s to lower 70s. Nailed the forecast for tonight. We did end up having this complex of thunderstorms that formed. It was severe, often towards northern Arkansas, southern Missouri. My forecast was once it got over here, it wasn't going to be severe anymore, and it was not. Those severe storms did fall apart, and it just became a heavy rainmaker, a little bit of a gusty wind maker as well. Some of us in the northern purchase area just got a very thin, narrow band of line of rain that did move through, and that was just about it. So many areas did pick up around a few hundredths of an inch. Some areas picked up close to a quarter inch of rain. So there was a little bit of a difference depending on where you lived in the purchase area with this complex of thunderstorms. If we look at the satellite imagery right now, we do have the sunshine not too far away from us. That is not a good thing. As many of you know from watching my videos, maybe just watching the weather period, you know that when you see sunshine on a day that is forecasted to have severe weather, that is not good news. Here's those clouds. You can tell that we are already looking at that sunshine, making it into portions of Carlisle, Ballard, western parts of Hickman and Fulton counties, and that is not good news because that adds energy to the atmosphere, and when it adds energy, that's more energy for the storms to feed off of, and they use that energy to grow and intensify, and that's what they're going to be feeding off of is extreme amounts of instability, some numbers we haven't seen in a few years around here, and those numbers are going to be what feeds into this MCS, this complex of thunderstorms. And we will probably be looking at a blanket of severe thunderstorm warnings tonight because the damaging wind threat is going to be so high. If you live at the campground or are camping at the campground this weekend, because it's Memorial Day weekend, many of us have plans with family and friends. Make sure that anything, loose objects, this really goes for anybody, are put inside. Maybe some of you got a head start on setting things up outdoors. I'm telling you that we do have the risk for 70 to 90 mile per hour winds to come through the region. This is not a drill. This is not a joke. This is something that we don't see often, and it is forecasted to happen tonight, and confidence has really increased over the last 12 hours with all the new model runs coming in and coming into great agreement on this MCS. If you live at the campground or are camping this weekend, the worst place to be during these winds are going to be in a mobile home, and that is also a camper. So make sure that you are aware of that. If there is a local storm shelter at your campsite, make sure and get to that storm shelter immediately. Know where it's at. Don't wait and try and find it during the middle of an event. These storms will be racing at around 50 to 70 miles an hour. The speed that you drive your car at on the interstate is going to be the same speed that these storms are going to be moving at. So there will be little time to seek shelter. Make sure that you are aware of that because you will not have a whole lot of time to sit there and lag around and wait for the storm to meet you. You need to get to your shelter before the storm gets to you and not wait for it to arrive. Now, we do have some cumulus clouds that are beginning to pop in parts of southern Illinois, southeast Missouri, and these could be the maker for a few scattered strong storms this afternoon. If we did see one perk up a little bit, it could perk up to those severe levels, the severe level requirements, but it's mainly tonight with these clouds that you see off here in northwest Missouri that are going to, this is our MCS complex right now, and if you think that looks big, it will be huge by the time it makes it down to our neck of the woods tonight. And so right now we're going to go ahead and get into some of the severe weather parameters that are going to be driving this system. One of those is the temperatures. Temperatures this afternoon, especially if we see a lot of sunshine, are going to be rising into the low to mid 80s. Some areas could reach the upper 80s, and if we do get lucky enough for some areas that love the heat, you could end up hitting the 90-degree mark. So we'll wait and see how that occurs. I don't think we're going to get that warm because of those cumulus clouds that will be moving back into the region, making for sort of a mix of sun and clouds this afternoon, and we could always see an isolated storm or two in the mix of it. Now, dew points are going to be very high as well. Some of these dew point values we wouldn't see until we get into the middle to end of summer, and that is what is going to be feeding a lot of moisture, so we could be looking at torrential downpours with this system as well. And if we look at the Futurecast radar, we're going to look at this complex of storms that we saw this morning move off to the south and east, but notice this bigger complex of storms forming in parts of southeastern Nebraska. That is actually storms that were severe in Colorado last night, so you can tell how far east they have traveled in just 24 hours, less than 24 hours at that. And as we look at the 9 p.m. Futurecast radar, this won't be exact. Take the general idea that we will be looking at a complex of thunderstorms moving into our area this evening and early tonight. And that complex of storms, notice how it has sort of that bowing feature. You see several of these little bowing out segments, and even with this sort of environment, if we even don't see these little bowing segments, the line of storms itself are going to be producing extremely strong winds. They won't last long because the storms will be coming through quick, but when they do hit, they will be very, very intense. There is a little room for error in this forecast right now because of how much agreement the models have come into. Still a couple of question marks that we are concerned about concerning how much more afternoon activity do we see. Does that hold down the energy levels and produce more clouds than we see sunshine, and that would lead to less instability for those storms to feed off of, a more stable atmosphere than what is right now predicted. That is one of the big question marks right now. PWatt values, precipitable water, basically showing you how much water is going to be squeezed into a very narrow column in the atmosphere from top to bottom. This is just another way of looking at how much rain, how much torrential downpours could we be looking at. And we are looking at those pinks showing you 2 to 2.5 inches. That is an excessive amount. You can tell that's pretty far up here on the scale. Let's go ahead and look at some of those severe level parameters that I was wanting to show you a few minutes ago. One of those is our lapse rates. More the lapse rate, the more you're looking at a very destable atmosphere, and we will be looking at those values reaching up here to the 9 to 10 values. That is also very up on the scale, and that is going to be, this is 9 p.m. this evening. You can tell we do have some of those pinks and purples right out ahead of this line, where you see this jaggedy looking line from gray to red. That is where our line of storms is going to be located right now, as you can tell. And then another question mark is really for tomorrow on Sunday. Do we see another resurgence of moisture, another resurgence of energy right ahead of that cold front to produce more severe weather? There is that possibility. It just really depends on how far east the cold front is once we all wake up tomorrow morning on Sunday. As we look at the surface-based CAPE, so this is that energy that I'm talking about, that energy that the thunderstorms need to feed off of and to grow and intensify. Now, morning thunderstorms did hold down our CAPE values really early, but it won't take long, and it really isn't going to hurt it at all. Our CAPE values are really going to rise significantly this afternoon. I do disagree with one thing about the NAM 3KM model, which is the model I'm showing you right now, is the CAPE values. All the other models show higher CAPE values than what this model is showing, so I think the CAPE values will actually rise up into around the 3,500 to the 4,500 joules range, and that could easily produce severe weather. Usually the minimum you would need is around 1,000 joules. We're going to be looking about 3 to 4 times that. So if that gives you any idea of what kind of environment we're looking at, a very, very prime atmosphere for severe weather tonight. As we go ahead and look at the surface-based lifted index, the more lift you have, the greater the chance of thunderstorms growing and intensifying, and you can tell we have very high values. Okay, this model, or this map, is weird because the further left you go on the key down here, the actual greater your risk is of severe weather. Usually it's the further right you go, the greater the risk, but the further left, they're looking at those higher contours, those more negative numbers, and you can tell that the more negative the numbers are, the greater the risk of severe weather. And that will be also predominant tomorrow afternoon. We will have a little bit of lift right here ahead of that cold front. The cold front will have lift with it, so it just depends on where that cold front is. If it's still to our west, we could easily be looking at more showers and thunderstorms in our neck of the woods for tomorrow afternoon, say between around 10 a.m. in the morning to around 3 p.m. in the afternoon. That cold front should be out of here by tomorrow evening, leaving us with a pleasant Sunday evening for many of us. If you have any outdoor plans tomorrow evening, it looks to be great as of right now, unless something changes significantly. We also will have some shear to work with. Shear is what is going to be driving these storms and helping them to grow and intensify also. And if we go into late this afternoon, early on this evening, you can tell some of those red contours are showing up. This would mean 80 to 95 knots of wind will be moving into our area tonight, and some of those winds will easily be brought down to the surface, and it won't take much for that. We will also have some shear tomorrow afternoon with that cold front to work with, so still some question marks concerning tomorrow's forecast. Right now, this video is centered around the forecast for tonight. As we go into this is the last map I will show you on this particular website, and this is basically showing you that turning of the winds with height. This is where I'm showing you that risk for the QLCS tornadoes. We will have some turning of the winds with height, so winds coming in at different directions, at different heights of the atmosphere, different levels of the atmosphere, and the more turning of the winds you have with height, the greater the chance of those small tornadoes that could form right ahead of that line or right on the very leading edge of that line, where we will see a couple of spin-ups that are likely with this event as well. So if we go ahead and look at what the Storm Prediction Center is showing, I will go ahead and get that pulled up for you right now, and they have really increased the risk over the last 12 hours. Here it is right here. You see that moderate risk. If we look at the probability for tornadoes, that is mainly going to be off to our north and west as these storms are beginning to form and fire up. And then we will begin to see that hail probability also staying off to our west when those storms begin to fire up because of that supercell nature, and that will eventually organize itself into a MCS, that complex of thunderstorms, as it intensifies this afternoon, as it moves into a very unstable environment, and that will be in our region as well. Here's that 45%. This is actually a very high percentage of the wind for tonight. So guys, it looks like a significant severe weather event, a severe weather outbreak coming in for tonight. Please be aware of this. Have your weather radios on in case you need to be woken up to seek shelter. I hope all of you stay safe and make the best of this Memorial Day weekend.